starting to get your attention. Thanks so much for joining us in the Infillion Garden. Hopefully you're getting an opportunity to cool down a bit. We're excited to get this panel underway. I know this is going to be a fascinating, engaging, super insightful conversation. So I just wanted to kick us off with a big thank you for joining us and introduce you to those of you who are not familiar with Infillion. Our name is new. This is a big coming out party for us here in Cannes. We are a portfolio company of advertising and marketing technology solutions, flagship products being our Truex product and our Gimbal commerce business and our Gimbal location-based media business. We're having an amazing time, as I'm sure all of you are, in introducing Infillion to the broader marketing industry. So today we're going to transition our conversations from real life into what's happening in the Web 3.0 world and talk about creative and consumer experiences that all of us can be involved with in developing in the metaverse, and as we start to move past Web 1.0 and Web 2.0 to Web 3.0. I'm going to hand it off to my colleague from Campaign US. The editor of Campaign US, Alison Weitzbrot, is here, and she's going to introduce our panel. And we're going to have a conversation and then open it up to the audience as well. Thanks for being here.
There you go. Thank you. I think I got this one, so this is for one of you guys. I don't think I need this. Okay, sorry. Oh, okay. There you go. Sorry, I'll sit on the end. Sorry, I didn't realize you were, okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Allison. I'm the editor of Campaign US, and as Krista said, we are going to be talking all about Web3. We have an awesome group of panelists here, very steeped in the gaming space, and Infillion is already prepping for the metaverse and Web3, so really excited for this conversation. Before we get into it, I'd love to have you guys all introduce yourselves. So, start.
Hey everyone, my name is Ben Fenster. I'm the co-founder and chief product at Anzu, an in-game advertising company that places ads on game objects inside the game world in a programmatic manner.
My name is Eric Murphy-Katorian. I'm a VP of engineering at Niantic, previously at a company called Eighth Wall, which was recently acquired in March. I work on the teams that do web AR developer platform and then branded advertising, as well as engineering and product management for our Niantic ads products.
Hi everyone, I'm Gabriella Heyman. I run global brand partnerships for Zynga. Zynga is one of the largest mobile game studios. We also have a blockchain studio. We were just acquired by Take-Two Interactive, so we are now Take-Two's mobile studio.
And then, hey everyone, I'm Patrick Gales. I head up our business development team at Infillion, which Krista very eloquently described what we do just a moment ago.
Awesome. So there's so much talk about the metaverse this week in Cannes, but I think that there's still a misconception about what the metaverse is. So I'd love for each of you to define the metaverse, how you see it. I know everyone kind of has a different viewpoint, so why don't you kick us off?
Okay, so in my mind, at least, every type of digital environment, which is a lot of people can access it together. It's digital, it's social. It could be any kind of multiplayer game. It could be essentially any kind of experience where people are online together and communicating is a sort of a metaverse, in my mind at least. So this is kind of how I would define it.
From the Niantic viewpoint, we're working on the real world metaverse. And the idea is that people will be walking around the real world, see things in the environment around them, and through a mixture of games and utility and discovery are going to find content that's overlaid on the physical world, either provides it with additional information or activations in regards to entertainment use cases. But ultimately, keeps the world as we see it as we go through it. It's very different from kind of a VR headset in your room space.
I think that there's a lot of, there's two discussions happening. There's the Web 2 metaverse, which is Roblox and Niantic, I would call it. No, maybe not. I don't know.
Shots
And,
fired.
It's getting spicy up here.
Fortnite, so there's that metaverse, and then there's the Web3, which I think is the topic of this panel. So Web3 being based on crypto, decentralized, and I would say, Decentraland, for example, and I would say that it's extremely early days. NFTs obviously are part of that too.
And I would agree with that last statement as well. So much of what we're doing, what you'll see over in that example in this panel, ends is our notion of what we can be doing as we step into these virtual worlds, right? It might be gaming, it might be education, it might be music-based experiences that everybody's going to be participating in, and we're finding a way to figure out how we're going to help subsidize that content as it shifts from 2 to 3, and what we can be doing from an advertising perspective and a commerce perspective for those users.
Yeah, Gabrielle, I think you made a really good distinction that Web3, it's about the technology underpinning it, right? It's that it's on the blockchain, it's NFTs, it's crypto, and that's sort of the next iteration of how the web is going to run. But since you're all pretty much in the gaming space, what can brands learn from gaming as they enter Web3?
I think it's great that you asked that because everyone is, what's fascinating to me about human nature and advertisers' nature is that they always want the new shiny object. And I think it's a mistake to hop from not really participating in gaming and not doing a lot in gaming all the way to get into Web3, because the truth is that being in gaming, gamers are very authentic, and it's even more tricky in Web3 getting involved there. So, for example, from my understanding to date, the average wallet size of people participating in Web3 is 20,000. So that's a lot of money, and it's this is super early adopters, tech savvy users. But you see a lot of brands kind of dropping NFTs and doing these things, but do they fully understand the space? So it's very important in games to be authentic to the game, to listen to your gaming partner and not just have an idea of what you want to do. Are you playing? Do you really know what this is like? You want to be in Decentraland. Do you have a crypto wallet? Are you in there? Are you seeing what's going on? So yeah, that's my advice, is to play, because gamers have a very opinionated perspective, and if you do it wrong, they will be vocal on social, and they will create a stain for your brand. On the flip side, if you do it right, it's an amazing brand halo.
Right, to your point, and they don't want to be interrupted, right? It's an immersive game, and commercial messages interrupting the gameplay is not the best experience. Eric, talk about your perspective on the question about what brands can learn from gaming.
Yeah, I think people like to express themselves in the games they play. Certainly if you have avatars, you can decorate them with the brands that you associate yourselves with. You have the ability to have your own individual freedom in a lot of these games. And I think where brands have an opportunity is to allow people to express themselves with their brands. It creates more brand loyalty. It's done in a way where it's opt-in. And I think it ultimately can create a lot of branded value for people in metaverse games and experiences.
Yeah. Chris?
So basically, gaming is just kind of the gateway into the metaverse, because you use the same tools, the same technologies to create the metaverse. And it will be the people that build games that will eventually create the metaverse. It's that talent and these tools. So, if you are not going to pick up a game, see how it's like, you probably shouldn't advertise, not in gaming, not in a metaverse, because you'll probably have a very hard time understanding these audiences and how to interact with them. You probably won't be good at it, but it's definitely a way to get the right perspective around how these people interact within that environment, and how to find meaningful ways to engage with them. So at least the first place to start is to open a game and see how it's like, and then think about ways to start experimenting with this media.
Yeah, do you find that you hear from a lot of brands that are just we want to be in gaming, we want to be in the metaverse, and they've never been on Roblox or anything?
So actually I have a great thing to say about that. We have a lot of brands. We work in Roblox. We currently have more than 60 million users on Roblox accessible through our platform. And I can tell you that a lot of brands are like coming to us, hey, let's build a Roblox experience, and they have no idea what it is. And it's like, I keep telling them, you shouldn't build billboards. You should put ads on billboards. So focus on the ads and not on building billboards because you don't know nothing about building billboards and you don't want to maintain the billboard, right? So what we guide them to is to find meaningful ways within the most successful Roblox games to have their experience. And when we have a very successful activation with American Eagle, for example, and Livetopia, one of the top games on Roblox, which they created a virtual tennis games and a shop and avatars playing with the characters, and this was like super successful and cost effective, and they are not stuck now with a game that they need to maintain forever.
Right. I mean, yeah. So building on this topic, like, what are other examples of brands doing a good job of integrating in these more metaverse immersive experiences?
I mean, so at Niantic, we have a couple ads products that work within Pokemon Go, which are, one of them is called Sponsors Locations. It allows brands to mark areas of the map that become Pokestops and have branded experiences and can drive foot traffic to those locations, which is great for brick and mortar. We also have another product called essentially billboard balloons. Whereas people are playing the game, there's an opportunity to get an in-game reward by viewing and participating in advertisement. And so brands have a chance to unlock the players not only get to engage with the brand, they get rewarded for doing so, and then there's an upsell opportunity to learn more about products or get coupons. And so,
yeah, no, I think gamification is a big part of it. Patrick, I'm curious what Infillion is building, like different ad products. What do you see working with different audiences?
Yeah, it's a good question. So much of what we've done at Infillion and the core of our roots has always been around rewarded advertising and opt-in rewarded advertising more specifically. So a lot of what we're building today are experiences for users that will allow for just that, right? Alternatives to a paywall, alternatives to a wallet where you can start earning these tokens where you can then purchase stuff within these virtual worlds and things of that ilk where you don't necessarily need a branded execution to bring it in, but you can say, hey, instead of pulling out your credit card or instead of transacting on another token, watch this ad, experience it, and you'll earn those tokens that then you can translate into these virtual worlds. And it's a powerful message for users, right, who might not want to dip their toes into investing in a certain token that they're not aware of, right? But they're able to do it through this rewarded advertising model that allows them to trial the coin essentially and then bring it to other areas of the game as they start to build a foundational knowledge of what it is.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. So the traditional rewarded video in games, which used to be called watch to earn, I think in the Web3 it's play to earn. So I absolutely agree with you, this concept of play to earn. And I think it's interesting because if you're truly in the gaming space, what's super fascinating about it is that hardcore gamers and honestly a lot of engineering gaming talent is a little bit dubious of Web3, and they're like, what can you get on Web3 that you can't get in a massively multiplayer online game? Because this idea that you can lose money on crypto, the value of it changes, and when you're making games, you want to delight people, you want to engage people, you don't want them to lose money. So this idea of play to earn is a really important one, especially for brands getting into the space, because that's just a very honest way and takes away some of the kind of risk factors right now.
Yeah. What are the, we're at Cannes, what are the creative implications here? How do brands need to start thinking differently about building these experiences, and are you helping them do that?
So I can jump in here.
Yeah.
I think there's a number of ways that we could start exploring this with different brands, right? And the word NFT is often thrown around as the next wave of what's going to be sort of these content ownerships within these spaces. A lot of what we're innovating on today and sort of working through is what's that translation of that NFT across a variety of different spaces. And as we start to dip our toes into the water of what these look like, right, it can be as basic as a couponing experience for a lot of these brands, right? You're investing in the game and maybe Coke's one of the brand sponsors, and perhaps you're earning something like a digital coupon in that game that gives you a percentage off of a Coke purchase in the real world. Or you could take that to another platform, right, and earn some Coke-based avatar item that you're walking around with as you're going between the spaces. So when we're thinking about this, we're trying to say what's the best thing from the end user standpoint that they're actually trying to invest in that game, and are there real world implications that we could bring into it from a discounting perspective that would incent trial outside of the metaverse as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, last week I was playing with an early demo of a NFT-based scavenger hunt built off of the web era platforms in Niantic and Eighth Wall. And what this let you do is essentially, you would see a map, you would see locations that we were supposed to be drawn to, which essentially could be branded or advertiser based. And when you go visit these, they would mint an NFT that would go into a wallet that you connected at the beginning of the experience. So it's a way, I mean, it's sort of a play-to-earn model that can be done in an event like Cannes, where you're driving traffic to specific locations or booths or branded content, and then providing people with reward and desire to do so.
Yeah. Anything else to add?
So, in our perspective, we are focusing on ad formats that are part of the experience and even enrich the experience, because when I walk around in a virtual world, now, if I'm going to see an ad in my language with a brand that is localized, like if I'm living in the UK, I'll see a Tesco, and if I'm living in the US, I'll see a Best Buy. I found a way to make the content a bit better, not by much, but a bit, and I think that this is what we should focus as the ad tech industry, finding this kind of immersive type of ad units that become part of the experience and actually makes ways to make it a bit better, because gaming audiences are very vocal when they are not happy.
Yep.
Right? And on the other side, there is another thing about brands that they want to access all of these new audiences and innovation, but they don't want to change anything in the way they work, the creative they create, the tools that they use, the metrics that they're measuring. And this is why I believe that the transition should happen by using these standard creative, more a type of ad units that doesn't bother the game and can even enhance it a bit, and start using this data to curate the right audience, understand what works for you, and then plan for more advanced activations, like more custom activations and unique type of scenarios after you know exactly what they are after.
Yeah, well, I think to your point, it's sometimes it's difficult for brands to get investment and buy-in to test something like that, something so different. Sometimes it's easier to just do the things that have always been done, but then you're not innovating, you're not keeping up with the consumer.
It's important to match the audience you're going after with the environment that you're in. And to me, that's the biggest kind of disconnect of Web3 right now, because everyone wants to be in it, but what kind of a brand are you? Are you an early adopter? Do you have a high value tech product? Those are that's the audience there right now. But even in the Web2 metaverse, I think about Gucci being in Roblox, and my kids play Roblox, which is awesome because it's so nice for me to see. But we went through the Gucci experience together, and it was really bizarre to me. Now, Gucci renewed with Roblox, so it did well, and it got millions and millions of views. But to me, my kids are not buying Gucci.
Right.
I think it's a very small percentage of people that are over 25 on Roblox. And so I played with my kids, and I got the Gucci hat, which I thought was cool. But the experience was look through the history of Gucci's fashion shows. And it was esoteric. It was 2017, Tokyo, whatever, and it was even me who I love fashion, didn't really get it. So listen, they're renewing, and maybe the strategy is we want the consumer of tomorrow, and that's okay. It's just not who's buying it today. And so I wonder is it always the right place to be? So
right, you have to think about there's different audiences on each of these platforms, and so you have to really think strategically about what makes sense. Speaking of being in the right environment, speaking to the right people, in what ways should brands be incorporating creators into their Web3 experiences? You want to take that one?
So, stuff that we've been thinking about is ways that were already tested in other forums. If you remember the Coca-Cola bottles that had your name on it. So this was a great experience for anyone that consumed it. And we think that something that could be really, really interesting is find a way to personalize the ads. So if you have a creator that is now playing a game and you have a lot of inventory and you can recognize that, you can even personalize the creative to cheer for him and even be contextual to his achievements or what's actually going on in the game. What we call it trigger-based advertising. So we know what's going on in the game with triggers exposed to us by the game, and then we can even personalize it and then have like cheer content for that creator, and this will also be available in his stream. And I think this kind of ways could help both the creator and being not intrusive to the gamer.
I mean, I think that is, having creators is essential to the success of any of these metaverse solutions. You look at Roblox and their ability. I mean, the most popular games that people play are created by individuals who see, an ability to economically build for this game, build platforms, and essentially end up building the engaging and fun content that keeps people in these metaverses, and certainly discovering new content. And I think that, for brands to be aware of this, it's, you said originally, one is being aware of who are the content creators, what are they building, how you have an opportunity to kind of share in their success and benefit them. I mean, in kind of an advertising and marketing model, as well as being able to then go and have these creators build for your brand, build branded experiences that live in the right location in these metaverses, and then participate with them.
Yeah.
I do think part of it, I do think part of this also is the what's in it for them from the creator standpoint, and even from the consumer standpoint of whatever's being created, right? As we look towards building these experiences and partnering with brands, it's great that you might have a Coca-Cola bottle in the background of your video on Twitch, right? But ultimately, is that something that's compelling to your users or even you from a content creator's standpoint, right? So as we start to evolve the way that we work with brands, perhaps we go into exactly as Ben was describing, part of the chat feature might be a Coke avatar, right? And when you use that Coke avatar, that creator's earning more direct revenue than versus it just being in the background of his stream, right? And having a bunch of eyeballs on there that wouldn't have done anything. And this is what we're doing and working with Infillion about, is there's these sponsored packages that we can work with these brands to create these cool experiences that are more endemic to these streaming sites, that are more endemic to content creation, that give you a larger percent of that revenue share as a creator versus all of that just going to the big Web 2 companies and then ultimately that direct to consumer mentality for Web 3.
Maybe one small thing, and I want to separate it into two. They're like the video creators, like the second-hand content creators, and there's like creators of experiences like Roblox or Minecraft or other environments that will come to be. And I think that another very strong collaboration that need to happen is for brands to work with these creators to build the experiments, to build the experiences and their games, and not try to do everything from scratch, because they are the experts. They understand the media best, and these are the people that should rely on when doing these things.
I guess we're talking about like two different types of creators, right? Like the creators that are building Roblox games, right? Like there's kids that have like funded their college from building these games. But then there's the influencer space, and I think that space is extremely symbiotic, obviously, with gaming, and like, YouTube having the predominant like traffic being generated by gaming content, obviously Twitch. But there's two. And so those things are very important. And even for us on having not the metaverse, but we have a lot of games where there's a lot of content created on like TikTok, and we'll get like 50 million views just completely organically from people loving a game and posting things about it. But that's going to happen obviously in Web3 as well. And the difference for a brand is, like, do you want to be interactive? And I talk about this a lot. Like, do you want to be interactive in a game where you're like having this two-way conversation? Or do you want to be like this kind of sponsor of like content, that's around and adjacent to? And they're two different things, so.
Right. I think, from the influencer point of view, I think, Patrick, you made a really good point about like, what's in it for the influencer? Like, what's the rev share? Like, we saw kind of how this played out on social media, and I think that, getting that revenue model right from the beginning is going to be really important for brands.
There's some basic psychological elements to all of this too that I find fascinating from that standpoint, right? Like we're conditioned to like a picture on Instagram or even on Meta, Facebook, but that doesn't do anything from you as a user who's uploading. You're just there because that's where everybody was from your network, right? So you're posting your pictures and you are engaging in that capacity. There are ways to evolve that thinking, right? Whether it's Instagram, whether it's Medium, whether it's other sites where there's a thumbs up opportunity that could be sponsored by a brand as well. So instead of just clicking a heart that gives you a like count, you're suddenly clicking a heart and part of that ad revenue is going directly to you. And I think that's a tremendous way for a brand to speak directly to users and content creators as well by simply doing a small tweak on the formula that's existed forever.
For sure. So one of the, by nature, Web3 is decentralized, right? But right now it's very fragmented. So there's different sort of metaverse-like experiences that you can be a part of, whether it's Roblox, whether it's Decentraland, whether it's Niantic Games, or any of the companies you work at. How do you think about brand interoperability between these platforms? Like, how do you take your virtual Nike sneaker and wear it across the metaverse, right? Like, are brands thinking about this? Is this going to be a really tricky solve? Gabrielle, why don't you?
Yeah, this is going to be extremely tricky. So I've been invited to a lot of these metaverse panels, and then I've had kind of dinners about it where everyone's discussing it, and there's this thought that there's only one metaverse,
right?
And what you earn in one game, you want to port over to another game. So if I have special bespoke Nikes in one game that I earn, I'm going to want to be able to own that in a different game. And I think that the thing with that is that these people are not developers, and they don't understand that every game has its own economy. And people that are making games are making games, how is that going to work? How is the other game going to earn money off this Nike that was made in this other game? And then also I think identity. I play many games, and I'm not the same girl on all those games, just on my, I have my LinkedIn identity, my Insta identity, my Twitter identity, and they're all different parts of the many facets of Gabrielle Heyman. So I feel it's the same thing in that. I think this concept that is very lofty. There's one metaverse.
Yeah.
That's what's happening, and you're going to be able to take your goods that you earn in one game and put it in another game. We're so far away from that.
Yeah.
Maybe we will get there. Maybe something because of the decentralized nature of crypto, something will evolve technologically that everyone gets their fair cut. But we're very, very far away from that.
So I think we're not far away. And
Okay.
I'm going to go after it. But so I don't know if anyone here is familiar with a company called Ready Player Me. But what they do is they build customized avatars with branded content, and certainly for movie activations, they'll create new outfits, new concepts, and new brands. But then their business is not building a game or a metaverse. It's allowing anyone else's metaverse or company to integrate their avatars into their games or their experiences. And so Ready Player Me is now partnered with, easily tens, if not, I don't know the final number of different platforms and companies and interactive games where you bring your avatar, which is personalized to you, into them, and anything that you unlock in one game does move to the others. And they've done a great job of, they've carved out the part of the decentralized piece that allows you to bring between games while still not ruining kind of the content generation and individuality of those games. And I think that model where people are integrating services in between these different experiences or integrating wallets like OpenSea that work with different games is the way you're going to be carrying stuff between them.
I would add to that, right, in a similar capacity, everything should have an associated value with it regardless of what token is available today, right? So that NFT might be worth 3 Solana and translate into 5,000 Polygon at some point, right? We'll have marketplaces that allow these things to be transacted on, and whether it's just the sale of that asset, but you're talking between two different currencies, right, or two different tokens specifically, you're at least able to not feel like you're just beholden to that one specific game, but now suddenly you have currencies in another experience. So I think that might be the easiest translation unless we find that unified wallet.
But imagine a world where I jump into Fortnite because they have the best deal on my Gucci jacket, which I buy with my Solana coin, and then I move that over to the next game and show it off. I think there's definitely this opportunity to tie content to these sub-services that become the pivots between these different games?
Like my point of view, at least on this, is I don't see it happening, and there are two main reasons for that. One, balancing a game economy. As someone that also used to run game studios, this is the most difficult thing you spend most of your day on. Lots of analytics just to find the right balance and making, especially when we talk about freemium games, where you do want people to make in-app purchases. It's still the main revenue source for most games. Then balancing it out is extremely hard. And then if you have an influx of people coming in with goods from other places, they're not going to buy it in your place. So this is like one problem, which is like very problematic. And then the second one is the variety of formats of 3D objects, metadata for 3D objects, ways to define physics, and does it float? How does it reflect? What is the scale of the object within the game world? These are like big topics that they are going to one direction, because if we look 20 years back, everyone used to have its own custom game engine, and now everybody's using like Unity and Unreal. So there is some level of consolidation, but when we talk about format of 3D art, there is like a long, long way to go.
It's really interesting, like, to hear you're all experts in this, and you have different viewpoints on what. It just shows how early in the game we are, right? Like, there's so many possibilities of how this can unfold. And I think one thing that's really important for advertisers is, like we've already said, Web3 is decentralized. There are decentralized autonomous organizations, right? It's not necessarily like companies controlling the experience. So how does that impact the advertising commercial model? And how does a commercial model like advertising that exists today translate into a decentralized economy?
I mean, this makes it so much more fun in a lot of different ways. I mean, I think what you said is historically true. Building economies in games is incredibly hard, and it's traditionally been fully managed by the game itself, right? It's not a real economy. I mean, it's a managed economy around the gameplay, but a Web3 economy in a game doesn't work that way. People are bringing in money from outside wallets. They're moving things in and out of it. It almost takes off in a real economy of its own. And having that kind of open space, while it's new and different, may actually open up very different opportunities for advertising. And so brands could be looking, where the money is flowing in these games, where time is being spent, and potentially could be creating content inside of these games that the game creators never expected or never knew was going to start popping up. And these are like branded avatar items being brought in through a third-party integration inside of a game. And I think it opens up new opportunities to innovate at a faster pace than the game developers would have moved themselves.
Gabrielle, did you have thoughts on that one?
I mean, when you asked it, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, this is, it's future. It's thinking about the deep future. I'm already just like, I've been in this space for a long time. So, I was selling like the first 468 by 60s on the web, and from Web 1 to Web 2, like, this is a new dawn. And the way that things happen is, like, there's going to be new paradigms that sort of, like, what I think is great is that we're learning from all of these other transitions and applying it to the next. But this decentralized nature is really a new twist. So I don't have a lot of feedback on that one.
Yeah. Well, it's also, the fact that consumers can own brands, right? Like, they can buy NFTs and they own a piece of the brand. So that kind of changes the dynamic a little bit.
And have ownership in a game, which, we were like, I was with you, like, building game economies is extremely difficult. I report to our chief product officer, like, there's a whole language and a whole, strata on that. And so it's going to just be interesting to see how it evolves.
I also think there's the volatility of the coins themselves, which you were describing earlier, play a role in this. So what we've done so well forever is this notion of opt-in interactive advertising that rewards these particular experiences. So part of this is just making sure that flow is inherent to the consumer, right? And then the value to this when you go direct to consumer versus through a proxy like one of the Web 2 companies, is that suddenly that skyrockets, right? So there's more earning potential, even if the coin kind of fluctuates up and down. So I think there will be a lot of interesting things that happen as brands start to talk more directly to consumers in these experiences.
Yeah. Well, you brought up opting in. I think something I know Infillion is really focused on is privacy. Consent. I think that's obviously a huge topic on Web 2 right now. How does that sort of evolve into Web 3? Like, what needs to be figured out from a privacy perspective before brands feel comfortable jumping in and creating these experiences?
I can kick it off. Something that we've done forever is ask users to consent to providing their data, right? And I think where this starts to evolve in these situations is that maybe it's a metered model of that, right? You're asking to provide demographic or psychographic information to us, so we make sure that we have the right ads available to you, but we'll also provide you with a time frame for that. You want to do it for 6 months, you want to do it for 12 months, great. We'll take that information as long as you're willing to share it with us, and then we'll re-ask you again if you want to do this to maintain a part of these economies and to get these opportunities at scale for these interactive ads.
Yeah, I think something that I think is really fascinating is, like I was saying, I was here at the dawn of like Web 1 advertising, and when we were like, oh, users can click, like, oh, we can like get every single bit of information from them possible, and so there was this, like the first wave, and then advertisers, of course, love that because like, oh my God, now my media is working harder because it's so much more efficient because I'm really targeting the right person, and then now we're seeing the great reckoning of data, and it's there's privacy laws. Like there's no current in the U.S. federal law, but states have different laws, and there's like iOS 14, then something's going to be happening with Android, and there's the death of the cookie. So I think we have an opportunity in Web3 to build this from scratch, and I love what you just said. And like I'm a big fan of this idea of like big sister versus big brother, which big brother like follows you around and you're like, why am I getting served this ad? Like I looked up something just out of curiosity and now it's following me for 2 months, versus like, hey, what would you like to know about? Like, are you buying a car this year? Would you like to see this, that, and the other thing? And that's something we're really not doing right now, that we have an opportunity to, and there's going to be forces that are beyond anyone's control. Like I said, privacy laws, things like that. But I think we have a really exciting opportunity to build it from scratch.
Yeah. I think that's a really optimistic note to end on. Thank you guys so much for your insight and your time. Thank you to Infillion, and time for some rosé, I think. Oh yeah, does the audience have any questions before we wrap up? I think I said rosé, now everybody's... No, ask.
Ask, yes.
Hi. Having lived through the same as yourself, Web 1 and Web 2, I'm hearing some of the similar rhetoric of how this is decentralized and creator-owned, and you own your own data. And that was some of the same messages with Web 2. Now you've got the dual pressures of consumers wanting it easier, because NFTs, wallets, etc., very complicated, and advertisers wanting it easier to spend their money. What pressures do you see from the Web3 and the metaverse that are going to push against those to maintain that vision, that ideal of a decentralized web?
I mean, I think a lot of the people who are focusing on, creating, whether it's the metaverse or a lot of these integrations within them, are really, razor focused on simplicity for the end user and ease of use. I think, it's early days and there are challenges and connected wallets and sign-ins and passwords, but people are doing a lot of work to try to make this easier and faster. I mean, I think that's key to just success more broadly and more generally, and hope to see it get better.
I do think there will be companies who gain some custodial access to these NFTs at some point too, to help you at least store them in a place where then you can push them into other wallets at some point. But it is a bit of a mess right now with how it's been built, right? Because you have to have a very specific wallet for a very specific token. So I do see that evolving in a way that's more consumer friendly, where maybe it's stored in the ether, right, in one of those other types of wallets, and then you could port it over wherever you want if it becomes important to you.
Any other questions from the audience? All right. Well, thank you all so much for listening, and everybody, please enjoy the refreshments.
Thank you for moderating.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.